Thank you. So yes, so CAD had a limitation of less than 256 characters, and VARCHAR had a limitation of 64K characters, right? However, if we want to actually if we want to actually store large amounts of data, uh, we will not be using CAD and VARCHAR. Obviously, we will use large object types, so blobs and clobs, basically. So blobs and clobs are essentially data types for binary large objects and character large objects. So for example, let's say that you want to have a database that has the user ID, and maybe that database like maintains a website, or let's say it maintains a blog, right? So it maintains the blogs of different people, right? So different users. So you can use a clob type object that holds the entire block contents and for a corresponding user. So for those sort of things, you would traditionally use large object data types. So blobs are for binary large objects. These are your images or any binary data or your music files or those sort of things. Clobs are basically character large objects, right? Another synonym for clob is also going to be text, right? So text and clob are pretty much interchangeable. Usually they are used to store large data files, but it says that you can store megabytes or gigabytes of data, but essentially you should still have some limitations into as to how much size a file can have if that file is I mean if that data is a clob or a blob, right? So we'll talk about this in a second, but in general these are designed to hold large amounts of data compared to your chars and varchars. Okay, so let's say that we have this schema, right? So let's design this schema that maintains the list of book reviews. So let's say that your company sells books and you want to have a table of all book reviews of all books. So you can say that, you know what, my review ID is there. That's a integer type primary key, some serial number primary key. Book title is a varchar 50. It can't be null. It has to have a name. Let's say that you also want to have the front cover of the book with that database as well. So you can say book image is of type blob, right? So blob is a binary large object that can be used to store images. Then you can have the reviewer name that can't be null, and the publish time that is that of type that is going to be of type timestamp, and it can't be null either. And then you can say that my review text is going to be a clob, right? So character large objects, a bunch of characters, not null. My unique would be my candidate key would be book title comma review, right? So what this means is no reviewer can post a review of a book more than once. So that is what this means, right? So if I say my book title and reviewer together have to be unique, that means that one reviewer can actually post a review for at least at most one reviewer can post the review of a particular book at most one time. Okay. So mainly we can have the thing that I wanted to talk about was review text would be clob for character large objects or character texts, and blob would be your book image if you want. So even if they do say, so this is what I was saying. So even if they do say that they are large objects, you should not opt for more than tens of KBs or hundreds of KBs of data in that particular attribute. Um, you can store larger values, but remember that a database is not designed to, or any database system is not designed to handle file systems efficiently. A database system is designed to secure, acquire data fast, update data in a go. But when it comes to implementing a good enough file system, databases are not that good, right? So in that scenario, you would actually want to use something else. And the best thing to use would be to use your own file system, right? So if you want to have like an MP3 collection of each user with their files there, for example, it's something like that, you would actually want to use the internal file system of your machine And instead of just uploading that entire file to your database, you would save that file to your system. And in your database, you can have a character array that just contains the path to that particular file. And the reason why we would like to orient our database around those things, because a file system is uh, arguably much more efficient than a database in saving those large files. So you would actually save those files into a file, into a FAT32 NTFS file system, and then get the path from there and then save that path in your database instead. Okay. However, for smaller objects that are frequently retrieved, you can actually save them in a database. Or if you want, you can also save smaller objects in the file system as well, if those objects are being retrieved quite frequently from the database. Okay, any questions about large objects? Okay. Default values. Yeah, and as I said, that this set of slides are going to be like a hodgepodge of things. So default values. So when we define a variable, or when we define an attribute in a database, in a schema, we can also specify the default value of that attribute. So for example, let's say that our table has 3 columns, and let's say that that particular column has let's go back to our previous example of a user and its address, right? So the username will have to be some value, but we would want our addresses to be null until and unless the user actually gives a address. So in that case, the default value for that attribute would be null. Similar to that, we can also actually specify the value that we want in an attribute by default that is not null, right? So in essence, we can say something like this. So that is your column name, column type, default, and the expression that is going to be your default value. So for example, we can say book rating is an integer type value, and if no book rating is provided, the default would turn out to be 3. This also affects insert statements as well. If you do not provide a particular column value in an insert statement, the default value would be used as that particular value for that column. Serial primary keys. So if we remember the concept of primary keys, so that was default values done, right? So now let's talk about primary keys again. So if we remember the primary keys concept, it was a singular value that acted as an ID because it has to be unique across our table. So every tuple would have a unique primary key, and that particular value cannot be null. So we have looked at primary key examples earlier when we worked with our bank database or the university database as well. So in terms of our bank database, we had those account numbers, right? A111, A222, A205, and so on. So those were our primary keys, and we know that those were unique. But more often than not, you can see that your primary keys would just be some integers. Instead of having some string, your primary keys would just be some bunch of integers, something like an ID for that particular tuple, right? So, so whenever we inserted data into our table, we had to specify a particular ID for that tuple. However, we can also choose to skip that and allow the database to assign a primary key every time a new tuple is inserted. So your database can maintain a list of IDs. So usually that ends up being a sequential set of numbers. And since primary keys end up being numbers as well, that usually ends up being a useful thing. So essentially your database would assign, so every time you insert a new tuple, your database adds 1 to the serial set and basically assigns that as a primary key and keeps on moving. So let's say that your database currently, or your table currently has 10 tuples, right? 10 values or 10 rows. And let's say that you all of those rows have those primary keys as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now you want to insert a new row to your table. You just give it the values for what you want, except the primary key, and your database would automatically assign the key as 10 or 11 for that primary key and then add that. So in order to make make that happen, essentially, you would need to write something like this. So create table employee, employee ID, serial primary key. That basically means that this is an auto-generated primary key that your database will handle on its own. So these are this particular statement is for the Postgres or PostgreSQL databases or the MySQL database system, right? For Microsoft SQL servers, you would need to say identity primary key, right? Okay. Basically, both of those two do the same thing, but the syntax is a bit different. However, one thing I should add that since so different databases borrow different, so I say borrow different things from different other database implementations. So I won't be surprised if MySQL also supports the identity keyword. But in essence, the basic idea is it is an auto-generated serial primary key that can be auto-assigned to your rows. Okay. So if we want, we can actually update the book reviews. So if we want, we can use these things in our book review schema as well. So the updated book review schema would look something like this. So let's say that we had the review ID. We initially said that was an integer type and it's a primary key. But now let's just say that it's a serial primary key. So I just don't need to give it a review ID every time a new review is posted. That review ID is auto-generated and added to my system. My book title is varchar not null. My book image is still blob. Note how I've also changed the publication time, right? So the publication time initially was timestamp not null, but I now have used a default value that is default now. So that means that whenever that new record is being uploaded to the server, the current time of that would be that publication time, and that would basically get the default value. So we can use the now function here as the default function. So whenever a new review is posted, we query the now function and we populate the publication time with the current timestamp. And then book rating is essentially another default value we set to 3. So if a book rating is not provided, we just say it's a sort of book, right? So it's a middle ground. Okay. Any questions? Altering tables. Okay, so we talked about creating tables, we talked about dropping tables. So imagine the case where you have designed a table schema, right? And then you inserted data on it and you want to query some things in your table, or you want to add more stuff to it. And suddenly you realize that the table schema that you had initially is not good enough for the task that you have. So for all of you who were working on, who faced this problem and told me about it, you guys might remember that in our homework too, we had a similar problem, right? So in my table schema, I had that check constraint that said that the value has to be greater than 0. At least the number of credits that a course can have would be greater than 0, right? However, we found out, I found out actually that you guys told me that we required greater than equal to 0 in our check constants, right? So we actually had to redefine our table schema again to have allow the greater than equal to check constraint, and then update all the tables again. But imagine the case if the same thing would have happened once you basically inserted a lot of data on your own by hand, right? Or if you had a lot of things that work on that table and you just can't drop that table off the top, right? So in such cases, we have the savior command that we have here, that is alter table. Alter table allows us to do a variety of things, and it is a very, very powerful